Welcome back to the Curiosity Cave. This week we're going for players from between Tommy Holmes and Ellis Kinder. This will include like Kaline, Monty Irvin, Harmon Killebrew, George Kell, Elston Howard, Frank Howard, Ken Hubbs. So we'll start off with Tommy Holmes. Card on the left is made in USA. On the bottom, and that one was made in 47 and 48, and then in 49 they added an exhibit card on the left side of the bottom, still a tan color. And then in 1952, the black and white version, and they kept the an exhibit card on the bottom. Tommy Holmes finished second in 1945 for the MVP vote, behind Phil Cavarretta of the Cubs. Cubs were the pennant winners. Holmes also finished second in batting behind Cavarretta, but he led the league in doubles and hits and slugging. So he had a pretty good year. He's pretty good player during his era. His last season, 1952, he had one plate appearance for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the World Series. Johnny Hopp had a long career with the Cardinals and the Yankees. Played for 3 World Series with the Cardinals, 2 for the Yankees, mostly outfield, first base. Interesting thing, he had a .296 career lifetime batting average over 14 seasons, so that's pretty decent. And this card was only made in 1947, no other variations. So it's one of those one-year printings for a player. Elston Howard, longtime catcher for the Yankees. He also rotated in the outfield, played some other positions like first base. First African-American catcher for the Yankees. He played in 11 World Series, starting with the 1948 Kansas City Monarchs. 4 championships with the Yankees. His last World Series was 67 with Boston, which was 7-game series against the Cardinals. And there's 3 different variations of Elston Howard. And this one gets into kind of minutia here. So this one here, it says printed, but it doesn't say printed in his shoe. So if it says printed in and not in the shoe, it's from 1958. Great pose, catching pose there. So if you get them and it says in, and it's in is on the shoe, then it was printed from 1959 through 1961. Tan version is only 1960, or no, I'm sorry, the black and white is only 1960. Tan version is 59 and 61. So depends on how deep you want to collect into this set on what variations you want, but here's an example of one with just printed on the shoe on the left, and on the right in shows up on the shoe. Frank Hondo Howard started off with the Los Angeles Dodgers after being a 2-sport athlete at Ohio State, where he was an All-American in basketball. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Philadelphia Warriors. He's with the Dodgers. He won a World Series in '63. Hit a home run in the World Series. Then he went to the Washington Senators that later became the Texas Rangers. And he was quite the slugger at the end of the 60s. I think he had years of 44, 48, 44 home runs. Pretty good slugger. At 6'7", he's pretty intimidating. And he has two different versions, and these are the two versions of Frank Howard. One on the left is his 1963 stat pack. And he was Rookie of the Year with the Dodgers in 1960. And this is the other version, blank back. And the blank back was made in 64, 65, and 66. Ken Hubbs, 1962 Rookie of the Year, second baseman for the Chicago Cubs. One of those guys that you didn't see his full potential. He perished in a plane crash after the 63 season in a snowstorm. And not much else you can say. It's one of those tragedies that stops a young athlete. He was flying the plane. Kind of reminds me of Thurman Munson. And this one is the 63 stat back. And the only other version is a 64 blank back. So it's one of them players that there's not a lot of cards of. He made his mark and he was gone too soon. Tex Hewson pitched for the Red Sox in the 40s. Actual 1941 through 1949. He won 22 games in, was it 42, I believe, and he pitched in the 46 World Series for the Red Sox. Spent 1 year in the World War II. This was one of the more difficult cards for me to find. I mean, there's cards that are more expensive, but this was more difficult. This was only printed in 1947. Number 21. Fred Hutchinson played with the Detroit Tigers 39 through 53. He took 5 years off to serve the country in World War II. And he's pitched 1 game in the 1940 World Series. And he was another athlete that was taken too young. He passed from cancer at age 45. He was managing the Cincinnati Reds in 1964, and they were battling for the pennant that year. He has a cancer center named after him in the Seattle area. And his card was only printed in 1948, so it's a little bit more difficult to find. Monty Irvin played in 4 World Series. 1946, he hit 3 home runs in the Negro League World Series, and the New York Eagles won the championship. And then he also played for the New York Giants in the 54 World Series, where they upset the Cleveland Indians. Card on the right is the oldest. It was printed 51 and then 53 through 56. The previous owner wrote that they acquired it at Westview Park, 1956. That's kind of cool when you see something like that on a card. And then the one on the left is from 1952, the black and white version. And Monty also played in the Minneapolis Millers in my area for 1 season, 1955. Joey J. This is one of 2 cards. This is a blank back version that was printed from 64 65 and 66. He was twice a 20-game winner with the Cincinnati Reds. Pitched in the 61 World Series where he was 1-1. And I believe he was also one of the first, if not the first, little leaguer to play in the major leagues. Jackie Jensen, he was a pretty good player. Started with the Yankees, then went to the Red Sox, where he really had a great career. He averaged 105 RBIs per 162 games for his career, which is pretty darn good. He retired young. Heard that he didn't like to fly when the teams moved to the West Coast. So his card was only printed in 1959. Sam Jethro, 1950 Rookie of the Year, Boston Braves. He also played in 2 World Series for the Cleveland Buckeyes, who won one of those World Series. He led the league in stolen bases his first 2 years in the National League. And these are the 2 versions of the Sam Jethro cards. One on the left is 51 and 53 is when it was printed. And that's got the tan. And then the one on the right is the black and white from 1952. Billy Johnson, 9-year Major League career, spent a couple years in World War II, as most players of his time. Played in 4 World Series with the Yankees, all with the Yankees, and Yankees won all 4 times he was with them. And then he finished his career with St. Louis. And this card was only printed in 1948. Walter Judnich, 9 years in the major leagues. He spent 3 years in World War II. Most of his career was with the St. Louis Browns. You can see this is a St. Louis Browns card. And he did end up with Cleveland in 1948 to get a ring with the Cleveland Indians. And this card was only printed in 1947. One of my favorite guys, Kaline, all-time great Detroit Tiger. Card on the far left, kneeling. Shout out to Don, Field of Dreams. This one was printed between 54 and 58. And then there's the black and white one of him kneeling, and that's looks like it might be 1952, but I don't think he was playing then. So this is a new card that doesn't appear on the checklist. And here's 3 of the cards holding bats. This one over here, black and white from 62, stat back. '63 red stat back. And this is 1960 blank back. Of course, Kaline was the youngest player to win a batting championship. 399 home runs. World champion with the 68 Detroit Tigers. 3,000 hits. Can kind of go on and on with him. George Kell, 15-year Major League career. Led the league in batting in 49, 306 lifetime batting average, Hall of Famer, of course. And these are two of the three versions of George Kell that I'm putting in my set. And there is a postcard version, but I'm not collecting the postcards. So the one on the left was printed in 48 through 51 and 53 through 57. And the one on the right was only printed in 52, and I'm missing the dark border version from 51. Charlie King Kong Keller, Yankee great from the 40s. He played in 4 World Series with the Yankees. Yankees won 3 of them. And this card was only printed in 1949. And it does have that an exhibit card, lower left. Alex Kellner spent most of his career with Philadelphia and Kansas City Athletics. Card on the left is the most common one, and that was printed in 50, 51, and then 53 through 58. And the one in the middle, it's the dark bottom, dark border, dark bottom. That was only printed in 51, so in 51 you could get either version. And then 1952, the black and white version. Ken Keltner played most of his career with the Cleveland Indians, spent 1 year serving in World War II, and he was a significant contributor in the 1948 World Series champion Cleveland Indians. He had 31 homers and over 100 RBIs. Okay, the card on the left is from 1947, and both cards have his name spelled with 2 N's. It should just be 1 N. And this one is only printed in 1949 because it's got an exhibit card on the left side. Another one of my guys, Harmon Killebrew. Harmon's got 7 different variations. The 4 that I have, I've got the 3 different poses: fielding, the batting, and then portrait with the helmet. One on the left is 1959 and 62. It's got the Mookie Chilson pinhole power going for him. And the next one behind him is 1960, black and white version, blank back. And the fielding one, black and white fielding, is from 1964 through 6. And then the more difficult one to find is this portrait with Harmon batting. It's got the batting helmet on. Ellis Kinder played mostly with the Red Sox, as you see in this picture. And he started out, I think he won 23 games in 49. And toward the end of his career, toward the end, he became more of a relief pitcher, pitching for saves. And this is the last card in this grouping. So I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you again for the next one.